Righto, thank you everybody. Welcome councillors, officers, members of the public in the gallery and on the live stream to this unscheduled council meeting on the 3rd of June 2025. Declare the meeting open at 1 p.m. Swan Hill Rural City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pays its respects to their elders past and present. Councillor Broad, will you read the prayer please?
Yes. We beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swan Hill.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an apology today from Councillor Englefield. Could I have somebody to move the apology, please? Moved Councillor McPhee, seconded Councillor Rogers. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Directors and officers present. Scott Barber, CEO. Leah Johnston, Director of Infrastructure. Michelle Granger, Director of Development and Planning. Helen Morris, Acting Director of Corporate Services. Ash Free, Finance Manager. Sharon Lindsay, Executive Assistant, and Tamara Matthews, Executive Support. Do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest, councillors? If not, we can move on from that one, and we will move to agenda item 2.1 to receive and hear submissions to the draft 25-26 budget. Mr. Free.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at the April council meeting, council approved the draft 2025-26 budget for public consultation. So following that meeting, our budget was put out for a total of 31 days for consultation. That period has now ended, and we received 10 submissions to the draft budget over that time. So those 10 submissions are included with this report for council's consideration. And these submissions were received via our Let's Talk page on our website. We advertise via the local print media, and also we've received a number of submissions via direct letters to the CEO. So of these 10 submissions, one of those submitters has requested to speak to that submission, so they are here with us today, and we'll get the chance to speak to it very shortly. So I take the submissions as read as part of the report, and the recommendation from this report is basically that council have received the 10 submissions to the budget and will be further considered as part of the budget adoption, which will go to the June council meeting, at which point we'll address the submissions, provide a written response to all those 10 submitters, and hopefully have the budget adopted at that June meeting. So would you like me to go through a summary of the 10 submissions, or just take them as read as part of the report?
Take them as read, I think. And if there's any questions pertaining to those submissions or the process, councillors, feel free to ask Mr. Free any questions you might have. Thanks, Ash, for your report.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, I'll move the motion, just slightly amended to what's in the report, to receive, hear and consider. Because under the Local Government Act, we need to receive, hear and consider the submissions. So the first point is receive, hear and consider. Okay? But otherwise, as per the recommendation.
Thank you. Just tidying that up. Now, do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded Councillor Rogers. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, look, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, firstly, I'd like to thank the 10 submissions that were put in relation to this budget. It's pleasing to see that people are taking a notice of what we do in relation to council. And we do have one submission that wants to actually speak to their submission, which will be given the opportunity shortly. But like I say, the thing is, I'd like to thank all those submitters. We will be considering all those. Today, the purpose is only to receive and hear, and as I said, consider. So, and I certainly do appreciate the fact that they'll all receive their own response in relation to it. Some of them are not directly related to the budget directly, but they're already items in the budget that we can explain that that's going to be covered in the current budget as it stands. But I'd just like to thank the submitters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Rogers, do you wish to speak to the...
I'd just like to support Councillor McPhee's statement, so that's all, thanks.
Thank you. Have any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. And just to reiterate Councillor McPhee's comments, that some of the submissions we received weren't directly related to the budget, but it is good to see that the community is engaging in that process and using the opportunity to raise concerns, or not always concerns, sometimes praise in relation to Council's activities. So thank you for that. Can I have a motion to suspend standing orders, councillors, whilst we hear the submission to the budget? Move Councillor Rogers, seconded. Councillor Broad, all those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Welcome, Ms Kelly. If you'd like, you are presenting, I believe, on behalf of the Swan Hill Sustainability Group, and you've requested to present your submission today. So, as per our normal procedures, we'll give you 5 minutes to present to your submission, which has been circulated. So, I'll take the submission as read, and then there'll be opportunity for councillors to briefly ask any questions if there's anything they want clarified from your submission, and then, as Councillor McPhee said, today is about hearing the submissions and not debating or deliberating on the submissions. So, welcome once again. Thank you for your interest, and the floor is yours.
I think it goes without saying that this is a really important part of local government procedure, where the community can have input into make submissions on the draft budget and then speak to them. So we were really keen to take advantage of that. Our good afternoon, Mayor, councillors, CEO and directors. Our 5-page submission covered a range of ideas across the various areas of interest of our group, based on our recently launched strategic document that I've got here. It's still getting a logo and some design work on it, which is why we haven't given you a copy. But you may feel I did add it up, $1.7 million of asks was unrealistic, but due to the urgency and timely nature of many of these actions, it was important to be comprehensive and prescriptive. The figures included are very ballpark and do not necessarily suggest the funds would come from rates. They could come from state and federal grants, where a substantial portion of our total budget does come from. But we know if it's not in the budget, it's most probably not happening. The outcome from last year's draft budget consultation engagement was constructive, and we look forward to seeing the positive outcomes from both the urban greening and cooling project and the Little Murray enhancement project. We acknowledge again the positive actions in the draft budget, including the welcomed $35,000 extra funding for proposed tree planting, extra funding for drainage stormwater, and the strategic planning done over the last few years that has recommended protection of the environment, climate action, renewables, greening and cooling. We hope our genuine commitment to working more closely with Council is obvious. Collaboration will help us align on our priorities and leverage funding together. It would be consistent with the way Council works with other stakeholders. This doesn't have to cost money, but builds trust, amplifies efforts, and will bring in external funding, most importantly. Swan Hill Sustainability Group wrote 2 letters to Council in mid-March this year, and we don't think we have had a reply yet. I did mean to ring Sharon this morning to check on that, but so I've just got a couple of points here. We strongly urge the reinstatement of the projects put forward by the Director of Planning and Planning. Michelle. The emissions measuring project, which was $15,000, and the carbon offsets grants program, which would have been $20,000. So we're strongly urging the reinstatement of those. And I think from the rest of our submission, particularly point 1, climate, electrification, emissions and equity, that kind of it goes into more detail of why we urge the reinstatement of that program. Number 2, we thought we could prioritise, because there are so many things in here, but prioritise a proposal to set up a partnership to develop a safe climate emissions strategy. This would take funds, that's goes without saying, but a program like that, a strategy, would assist residents in uptake of electrification to their homes, installing household and local business batteries, upgrading home efficiency, energy efficiency, retrofitting council buildings for energy efficiency, and proposing electric vehicle in the fleet. So in the media recently, there's the Victorian SEC has now been set up, and a real focus is on renewables uptake and electrification. So having a strategy would mean you're going along to collaborate with things that are coming down from the state government. Number 3 point here is to set up a partnership to implement the transition to renewable energy. So a partnership like that between our sustainability group and council and perhaps other stakeholders would mean that actions in the eco-development strategy, like advocating, preparing for renewable energy transition, could be enacted, and the action from the current council plan to prepare an advocacy document on renewable energy could be worked on.
Just let you know, 30 seconds.
Great, yep. And it may involve the partnership with an academic from a university in an advisory capacity, engaging a consultant to set up a community benefit sharing protocol. So these things are urgent. We've got a RES kind of plogged basically right on top of us. We are going to be a renewables area, whether we like it or not. I don't think I have much more to say. There's a whole lot of other listed things on health, greening and cooling, on healthy land and water. But yeah, thank you.
Councillors, any questions or clarification around the submission? Councillor McPhee.
I have a question. Firstly, welcome back to the chamber, Ms Kelly. And thank you for your submission in relation to this. You just mentioned there was a wish list of approximately $1.7 million. With a lot of submitters, and you said that a certain amount of it comes from funding, yes, but there's also rates go into that as well. With submissions, what would your group be prepared to take out of our current budget to accommodate some of your stuff? You haven't highlighted that.
Well, that would probably take a lot of volunteer hours to work that out. I think that's maybe perhaps beyond our capacity to do that. But if you wanted that specifically, we could work on that. But yeah, no, I don't think that's more a job for your staff, your well-trained staff, and yeah, if you want that from the community, then maybe give more detail on that. I mean, the $1 million to design infrastructure for clean water and new wetlands, upgrading the Milloo Street wetlands and providing, I think that's probably going to come out in the, I don't know if it's public yet, the drainage stormwater consultation that was happening when I was on council. So I think the $1 million there, I know we already have a reserve for drainage. We're already putting our surpluses into that drainage fund. So I don't think that, but yeah, things like building drainage infrastructure and new wetlands, $1 million is probably cheap. So we were just reflecting some costings, because I know that you can't really do much without having figures. So we didn't put figures for everything, but where we could kind of guess at it, which is a total guess. We're not
You've covered it, thank you.
economists or
Yep.
engineers.
Councillor Thornton?
Just a question in relation to the timing of the presentations. Has that made it difficult for some of the group members to participate in this,
Yeah.
speaking to submissions?
Yeah, luckily I'm flexible. I can cross myself out as a self-employed person, but yeah, for sure, we've got people who can't get here at a 1 o'clock time period. So, for sure, many councils meet in the evenings, which would make participation of residents much easier.
Councillor Rogers? Just your microphone, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Kelly, for your submission. It's good to have submissions from everybody. Just helps us fine-tune everything. Just wondering, it was the specifics in the submission. Some of them were requests for money for projects, but it didn't identify exactly what you wanted to do in those projects. So I just would ask that if in the future to still support your submissions and have them come in, but just make it a bit more specific so we know exactly what you want to achieve with that funding.
Yeah, look, I know it's difficult for new councillors. Some of the things that are mentioned in there, because I've just come off 2 years on council, I was able to refer things that have come straight out of consultation documents, Robinvale Riverfront Master Plan, or the small towns study that was done. So, but yeah, a lot of it has come out of current strategies or plans that are on the table and current, and we're just, that's the whole thing with council. You can get a $100,000 study on something. That's good. You need that, but you've got to then put the money in to implement. So we have often here just put in, okay, for example, trees for Robin Street in Robinvale, or tree-lined main streets in Ultima, Menang and Lake Boga. That's come straight out of the small town study. Money for river walks, that's come out of the Robinvale Master Plan. I know we've got an active transport strategy, but if there's no money in concurrent years to do anything in it, so I suppose it's just we are shining a light on some of the things that already actually exist on paper, but they need to come in and be reflected in the budget. But yeah,
Thank you.
I know in our letters in March we did request to have a meeting, and I'm hoping that we can schedule, 1 or 2 meetings a year, attending your briefings and having, 15 minutes, 20 minutes with you to discuss things at a more focus level.
Councillor McPhee, another question?
It's actually towards the CEO. Mr CEO, just bearing in mind what was the comment that was made before in relation to timing to hear submissions, we might have to take it on board that in future we allow an opportunity if people want to speak to their submissions at different times. Just so, just not this time, but just to make a note for any future budget submissions we do, allow that flexibility for the people to speak.
Thank you. Righto, thank you. Thank you for attending today and for your submission.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work you're doing on the budget. It's pretty huge.
Righto, can I have a motion to resume standing orders, please? Moved Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2, Revenue and Rating Plan 2025 to 2029. Mr Free.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So following last year's council elections, the first year of council term, council's tasked with the adoption of a revenue and rating plan. As per the Local Government Act 2020, and it's section 93. So the purpose of the revenue and rating plan is to determine the most appropriate and affordable revenue and rating approach, which will adequately finance the objectives in the council plan. And council will work with staff and consultants So at that meeting, the revenue rating plan, as it was presented, was approved for public consultation, at which point it was again put out via our social media channels, our website, our Let's Talk page, and inviting submissions to that revenue rating plan. So we received 6 submissions via our Let's Talk platform, and then we received a further 2 submissions via letters to the CEO. And all those submissions are attached to this report for council provided for council information. I suppose the significant change with the revenue rating plan this year was to reduce our number of categories. We had 12 categories in this year's budget. We're looking to reduce that down to 7. And they were basically just simple changes to the categories within the class. We have residential, Swanee and Robinvale, so we've now just created one residential rate, which captures all of our residential properties. So we have residential Swanee, residential Robinvale, urban other. So they're all just now residential, general residential. Commercial Swanee and Robinvale have been combined into a flat commercial rate. Same with the industrial. The change there, the industrial categories increase of 110% of the general rate. And the outcome of this plan here is to increase the industrial category over the next 3 years to align with the commercial rate. So attached to the report is the draft revenue rating plan. So the options to council at this meeting, I suppose, is to adopt the revenue rating plan as it's presented, or adopt the revenue rating plan with any amendments you consider required. And I suppose our recommendation is the revenue rating plan is adopted as it's presented.
Thank you, Mr. Free. Any questions there, councillors? Just for the purpose of, one from me, just for the purpose of clarity, in the recommendation as per the report, so that would be the table on, in terms of rating categories and differentials, that would be the table on page 18 of the report, page 51 of the agenda. Is that, just for the purpose of clarity, is that correct?
I'll just bring up page 18. Yes, it is. Yep, that's correct.
Yep, thank you. Just for clarity, because it's not specifically written in your report.
Yeah, so, and once we list the rates and the dollars in our annual budget, that will be, they'll come out as per that table.
As per that table. Thank you. No, Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, Mr Freed, just in relation to the payment options, we've got it included in there where you can pay in 4 instalments or it can be fully paid by the 30th of September. Will that be identified in the rates notice? Because that's one thing that a lot of people get confused about. They don't understand that they can pay it in a one lump sum at the start.
Yep, so it is listed on the rate notice. And I suppose last year we looked at highlighting it a bit more as to that it is a valid option. Certainly available. Yes, you're correct. It can be paid in full at September. I think the table on the rate notice, I think last year we made it more obvious that certainly was an option to people. So I think that was the issue prior, that it sort of looked as if it was to be paid via the instalments only, but certainly is it is an option to them.
Hello, Councillor Thornton.
Just a question on how do you feel we've reflected the cost of living and the cost of doing business crisis that everybody's talking about? Do we feel there's adequate consideration in the advice that council's given us as a councillor group?
Well, I suppose the review of the economic data we were given looks, and we haven't really changed all that much really. Like the residential 4% differential for the 2 townships, that has been removed. So I suppose effectively the cost of living issue for the residents has come down a little. So they have a little bit of a win there. And I suppose the other change to the industrial, all the data was presented as being, they were the category that seemed to be performing the best. So I don't think there was any additional, great impost on that category. It was a share, an equitable, reasonable share of the rate burden spread across those categories.
Righto. Sums up for questions. Can I have a motion? Councillor Thornton.
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors. I'd like to move an amended motion that you have before you. Having considered submissions, that council adopts the Revenue and Rating Plan 25-29 with the following change: a 90% differential for all farming categories, rather than the 80% differential for the dryland category as is currently drafted. This harmonised, I'll use inverted commas there, differential for all farming categories will not significantly burden any other category more than the current draft. Instead, sharing some of the rate relief currently enjoyed by dryland farmers with 217 extra properties that are within the irrigated farming category. This improves the overall fairness of our strategy, and it simplifies two of the important principles we must consider.
Sorry, just for clarification before I ask for a second. You said 217, it's written as 2017?
No, 2017 irrigated farming properties in that category.
Right, thank you. So as written is correct?
Yep.
Thank you, that's fine. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded Councillor Rogers. Councillor Thornton, you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much. Let me first reiterate some of the points I made when we adopted this draft plan. It is important to highlight that capital improved value is the commonly accepted and fairest way to calculate rates and assess capacity to pay, as it reflects both wealth and the ability to be profitable in the productive sectors. Those who own valuable properties have more capacity to pay, generally speaking, than those who own less valuable properties. This is basic and underpins our whole strategy. Valuations are completed annually and can be challenged. In Swan Hill Rural City Council, our two categories with the highest number of properties within that category are residential and farming. And those two categories will always make up the largest slice of the pie in terms of revenue for our municipality. I strongly believe that differentials need to be carefully considered, and I think we need to do more work on that because of the impact that a differential will have on other categories. For example, the 20% differential to dryland farming costs about $1.1 million onto other categories, for example. We have been experiencing some difficult times. All categories, across all the categories, with inflation and the costs escalating for households and businesses. The recent federal election was fought on cost of living, and having just completed a review of our budget in my own business, costs are sky high. Broadly speaking, though, I think it is true to say that the productive categories have more capacity to pay than residential, which is supported by some evidence we were provided with higher arrears in the residential categories. Now let me focus on the major change to the draft that I am proposing, having considered the submissions. Whilst it has not been modelled by the AEC, it remains basically the same for all categories other than the farming category. I have worked with council officers to look at and assess the impact of the suggested changes, and I believe it significantly improves fairness. The adopted draft, consistent in these parts with the previous 4 years, lists 3 justifications for a 20% differential enjoyed only by the dryland farming category. There has also been advice indicating that initial 10% differential was at some time in the past increased to 20% due to drought. So I think we need to be careful where exceptional circumstances then end up becoming a permanent reduction. Getting back to the three listed objectives or justifications, two can easily be argued that are shared across the irrigated farming category. For example, variable incomes and difficulty in accessing all council services. The third justification, which is disproportionate increase in property values, is illogical and flies in the face of our basis the whole basis of our rating system. Apologies. Property values rise with profitability. There have been strong results in the dryland category during the past 4 years, and values have increased accordingly based on sales, market value, and buyers believing they can be profitable at those prices. The values are quite astounding, no doubt, somewhat of an anomaly, one could even say. And whilst this year they have softened slightly, it is a reflection that we do have some of the best dryland farming across the Mallee, a true asset to our municipality. Alternatively, irrigated properties, particularly in the smaller commercial operations or family farms, are very, very difficult to sell, and values have dropped accordingly. The change I suggest does not remove the whole differential or benefit to dryland, with the proposed retaining of the 10% for that category. A 10% for irrigation farms will help and provide some rate relief for operations in dairy and horticulture that have experienced significant impacts of water reform, wine grape growers that have had particular struggles and have been suffering in recent years. It will also help and provide some relief to hobby farms and lifestyle farms that are existing in the dried off areas, in the irrigation districts that no longer have commercially viable options. Finally, I won't go over that actually. I do think there's more work we need to do on differentials. I'll leave that for later. And I just ask that look for support from my fellow councillors. I think that we can improve the fairness and the simplicity of our strategy with these changes. And I think that, we've talked a lot about the alarm bells are constantly being raised about drying off in irrigation areas and wastelands, even using the term wastelands across our irrigation areas. But I think that irrigation needs, support in this area. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Councillor Thornton, and thanks for your preparation in that. Councillor Rogers, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I wasn't, but I will say a little bit. I'd just like to say that I support what Councillor Thornton has said. I see it as a fairness and a reasonable thing, and I note to the council that the water price out there for irrigated farmers is now $290 a megalitre, so there's significant pressure on the irrigation area and farmers. It pushes some farmers into unviability and some others are hanging in there just. But I also note, the dryland farmers too, we're in a drought, and it's important that we try and achieve the best fairness for everyone in our municipality, and I think this does head towards that direction. So, that's all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. According to the data that we have, the average rate for irrigated farming is $3,740, and the average rate for dryland farming is $4,556. The motion suggests dryland farmers are experiencing rate relief. Since 2018, dryland farmers' share of the total rate burden has increased from 13.9% to 19.6%. I wouldn't call this rate relief. In that same period of time, the irrigated category has gone from contributing 32% of the total rate burden to 26.5%. I understand the desire for harmonising rating categories, with the irrigated category having almost 800 more assessments. If this motion were to pass, the difference in the total rate burden for both categories would be 1.9%. Mr Mayor, giving the irrigated category a total saving of $775,000 and the dryland category an extra $734,000 to make up doesn't speak harmony to me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Broad. Do you have any other speakers in favour?
I won't speak against.
Speak against. Councillor Jennings.
The reason I'm speaking against is that I would have liked more time and opportunity to digest this, and I feel that we've had lots of conversations about numerous options put to us. We've talked about those long and hard, but unfortunately this wasn't one of the options that was put. I've certainly got some sympathy for the irrigated farmers, having been out to inspect the dried off areas, and in my mind I'll be more positive towards it for 12 months down the track. But just in the last week, in my capacity as looking after the Menangatang area, along with the Mayor, we've had a meeting with the Victorian Farmers Federation in Menangatang, and questions put to us about the levy and how council would support the dryland farmers. I would have liked to have had this option in my back pocket to be able to speak towards, rather than comments that we made there and discussions we had with them, and then a week down the track we looked to approve a lowering of their differential. I can see both sides of the argument, but I just, even today in a meeting I've had this morning, a comment was made that the dryland farming is on a knife's edge. So I think we need to be aware that if there's not rain in the region in the next 10 to 15 days, it's going to have a substantial effect on the disposable income in our region. So for that reason, not because I don't think that the irrigated farmers aren't deserving of a reduction, but I'm coming from a position of paying 130% of the levy for many, many years, and on some occasions twice that. So I just would have liked more time to be able to digest it and think it through.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor McPhee.
I'm the only one that hasn't spoken to the motion, but I'm speaking against the motion. I accept Councillor Thornton's position in relation to try and making the farmers equal, whether dry land or irrigated. When I first got on council, I still get the question of, what do I get for my rates? That's a question that comes up every year when the rates go out. The difference between dry land farming and irrigated farming is the fact that the irrigation farming is a lot closer to services that council provide a lot closer to the river, a lot closer to our services. Our dryland farming is out in the mallee, in the back blocks. And when we talk about this rating strategy, there are a number of rating objectives we've got to take into consideration, being sustainability, equity, fairness, efficiency, simplicity and stability. So it's not a case of looking at one just in fairness. It's always a difficult time doing this every year, every fourth year when we do this rating strategy. It's taken a lot of consideration. We have had a lot of information given to us over the last couple of months in relation to this. From the consultant, who do this all the time, I believe that they've come up with the fairest and best rating system that we had, and that was as is. So with all due respect to Councillor Thornton, I do appreciate where she's coming from, and I do think it's worth consideration into the future maybe, but currently as it stands, I think, as Councillor Jennings said, it's brought up last minute, the modelling hasn't been done properly on it, and I think we've got to go with the what was recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Thornton, you have the right of reply.
Thank you very much. I will say that I'm very disappointed to hear the lack of support for my current amended motion that really does show some tangible benefit to irrigated farming and does respond directly to the submission received from Swan Hill Summer Fruits Development Association in response to Councillor Broad's comments around the number of properties and the slice of the pie from each of the different categories. I think it's important to remember that most of the data that we receive and did receive from the AEC, and that Councillor Broad was reflecting on is a direct result of the fact that capital improved value multiplied by the number of rateable properties in that category gives you the breakup of the pie. Now, under the current 20% differential for dry land, 1,220 rateable properties receive that benefit or rate relief. So by amending the differential and giving 10% to all farming categories, that increases that benefit or rate relief to a further 2,017 properties. So it's broadening some rate relief for many ratepayers in this community, not just dry land, and it remains true to the basics of our rating strategy, which recognises capital improved value as the fairest way to determine capacity to pay.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Righto, councillors, we've heard the debate. We've got the motion. All those in favour of the motion? All those against the motion? The motion is lost. So, councillors, I will need another motion. Councillor
I move as per the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
As per recommendation, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Broad, thank you. Councillor McPhee, do you wish to speak to the
No,
motion?
look, I think it's all been said in the previous motion, Mr Mayor. I think it's about, like all those objectives I said, we've got to consider all them, and we've got to consider all submissions in relation to it, not just one on its own. There are submissions also from dryland farmers and other people, so we've got to look at all the submissions, and I think this is the fairest way that we've come to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Broad, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Nothing further to add.
Nothing to add. Do you have any speakers against the motion? Councillor Thornton.
I will just add that I think that there's a considerable feeling in the irrigated farming community that we're sick of being in the headlines. They are sick of having politicisation of their industry through water reform and through other issues. We need tangible support. We need the support across all levels of government, and the closest level of government to our industry is local government, and I would strongly urge councillors, particularly those who in leadership capacities are visiting our organisations and suggesting that they will provide support, look to opportunities like this in the future to support our industry and give us a fair rate relief that is being offered to dryland farms.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Do I have any speakers, other speakers for the motion or against? No other speakers to the motion. Councillor McPhee, you have the right of reply. No right of reply. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors, and as all councillors have alluded to, this is a difficult topic for us to discuss when it comes to budgets and rates and all those things, because we do understand that each category can't be looked at in isolation, and changing one category impacts another category. So it is a difficult matter to address. I also want to clarify that AEC in this instance is actually the name of our consultant, and it's not actually the Australian Electoral Commission. I just wanted to clarify that because we have been so close to a recent election. So I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you. Mr. Free, anything further you need to add on that? Now you have a motion.
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
That forms part of the budget now, going forward.
Yes.
Thank you. Righto, we'll move on to agenda item 2.3, councillor representatives to external and internal committees. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take the report as read just to comment that with scheduling conflicts, we're requesting a change of councillor representation of the groups of the meetings in the report.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No? Can I have a motion in regards to the report? Councillor Jennings, seconded Councillor Rogers. Councillor Jennings, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, just procedural, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers? Nothing? Anybody speak against the motion? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. With that being all the business for the unscheduled meeting, I will now call the meeting closed.